powerful cyber angle. The Syrian electronic army hasn't been traditionally known for an outrageous level of sophistication, though. And most of their work is classified as hacktivism.
Right. And, John, a lot of people describe the attacks, reported attacks, I guess, on the New York Times website and others, as the work of people who aren't very sophisticated. Does that, how important is that? And, again, do you expect this to escalate if and as this conflict continues?
Yeah, I mean, I expect it to escalate. I mean, and I would disagree with what Mike said. I mean, when you look at the Syrian electronic army, they've definitely upped their game. I mean, when you look at what they did to the New York Times a couple days ago, they basically did some DNS modifications, which basically redirected people to other sites. This isn't very trivial to do. And furthermore, there was an alleged allegation that they were going to take down the Israeli critical infrastructure. These type of activities, in my opinion, are not the activities of hacktivism. They're activities of people that are very well prepared and have a mission to pull out.
John, can we just explain what's happening here with the domain name system? Basically, this is a registry that's in Australia that matches the number of a server, say the New York Times server, to nyt.com and enables people to match the labels and is kind of the backbone to everything that is going on. How difficult is it to do what they did in Australia? And why is it in Australia? Why is it not within the shores of this country where it can be better protected?
Well, when you look at DNS, and DNS at the highest levels, basically like the yellow pages of the internet, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, it's very sophisticated. I mean, there's talks about social engineering that caused the modifications to the DNS registry. After reading some reports that came out of Australia, that doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, when you start looking at the global infrastructures that we have today, I mean, yes, it would be nice that we have everything hosted here in the United States, but we live in a world economy where things are hosted all around the world, like content delivery networks that deliver information, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So, I wouldn't say it was less secure because it was in Australia, but when you start looking at the sophistication of how they did it, in my opinion, that is not the work of a hacktivism.
Mike, we talk about the sophistication levels and the mission of the Syrian electronic army. What is the mission? Because bringing down the New York Times for a couple of hours is not disrupting the national grid. I mean, where is the path between this and that?
Well, I think when you try to link up the hacktivism attacks concepts with an actual grid attack or something more elaborate, the one thing you always have to keep in mind is all of this stuff is for sale. So regardless of your capabilities inherently, your access to good code, your access to vulnerabilities and attacks are it's a monetization problem, not necessarily a capability problem. So what you see is an organization that is integrated into that world, they have access into that world, and presumably they have means at their disposal. So I think that's why you can make the leap of something that's disruptive to media that possibly could jump the chasm to something more difficult or more painful.
John, the fear when or if there is an attack on Syria is what the retaliation is going to be from Syria itself and also its allies. What is the capability of Iran at the moment? We know that Israel and probably the United States managed to attack it quite sophisticatedly through the Stuxnet virus on the nuclear reactors. In return, what has Iran built up?
So we talked about this in my first book. I mean, their cyber capabilities, based on research that we did, I think it was out of a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the worst. They were somewhere around 3 or 4. So they definitely have sophistication and advancement in terms of cyber weapons. But one thing I did want to mention, when you start looking at Russia that was selling conventional arms to Syria, no one's really talking about they selling cyber weapons as well. So I think when we start looking at the allies and the different groups in that region, Hezbollah, Syria, Iran, when you start looking at the cyber capabilities of all of them, which they've quite well demonstrated that they have that, I think this could be the first conflict where cyber warfare is going to have a significant impact to possible U.S. interests.
We'll leave it there, gentlemen. John Pirc and Mike Fay, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Things look pretty grim right now for the city of